So yeah, a little bit on the context. I joined Wiz like, yeah, as I said, like fairly late actually into the growth. They were already on the cusp of 200 million. There was a little over 100 sellers at the time. And basically very low to no investment happening on the digital marketing side, which was where I really stepped in. And very little historical data to go off of to understand what was working and what wasn't. In terms of growing into that pipeline number and starting to meaningfully contribute there, it was a bit of a dicey time to be stepping in. That was also part of the appeal for me selfishly when I came in. It was like an interesting puzzle to solve because this company had grown remarkably fast, invested in a lot of very resource intensive activities. Like I think the field marketing team at the time, Nico, correct me if I'm wrong, was around 30 people. PMM was a little bit built out, not quite as much, but Nico was there. And yeah, on the digital side, very immature, very early days. So on the next slide, I kind of cover kind of what were the main priorities of. Oh yeah, just a little bit on the on kind of the revenue. This looks ridiculous today, by the way. The next slide was taken from our blog where we announced the 100 million milestone in revenue. You look at this chart today, and Wiz is already all over on the right end of that axis. Sometimes it's already fallen off the axis, and it's not even there anymore. So that's how quickly things have changed in the last 3 years since this was published. Um, but I think what I'm going to describe is really what we did versus how, because obviously, as Francesca shared, the how is changing really fast in terms of how do you set things up, how much AI are you using. This was all human-led at the time. Obviously, building it again today would look very different. Um, but yeah, the two main pieces that were missing and that kind of stalled the growth marketing team at Wiz was not having a clear picture of ROI and the ability to report back in a really clean way on why are we making the investments that we're making, so that everyone has confidence in how the dollars are being allocated, how they're being tracked, etc. I could spend more time on this, but I feel like this is something that everyone kind of has a version of internally. I think that the main lesson there was making sure that you have finance and sales buy-in as you're setting this up. Again, otherwise it's just marketing grading itself, and that's usually where these things kind of die. Um, I'll focus more on the second piece, which is how do we prioritize pipeline generating activities. Again, in the context of Wiz, the idea was how quickly can we support a business at that scale with over 100 sellers, already over 200 million in revenue, day one pipeline target in the tens of millions. Um, so the main insights there, the two things that we kind of took as a starting point was one, demo requests just outperform every other type of lead by margins of pretty much every step of the funnel. Conversion into opportunity, and then all the way through to closed one, and even ACVs were larger. So there was just a very clear signal there, and I think that's pretty much true across all products. The other one was kind of understanding what firmographics are important for the kind of product that Wiz sells, and again the way that Wiz prices is based on cloud usage. And there is no public database to reference to say who is in cloud versus not, and how much are they using, and is it multi-cloud? Because that again is the kind of ideal scenario for Wiz to sell into. And so building a lot of that data internally so that we could really show the dollars are going to where there is the highest propensity to buy. That was a big part of the success there. But I'll hit on the next slide here and just kind of break it down into like short term, medium term, long term by those kind of two dimensions, demos, and then prioritizing the right accounts. Um, want to make this something that folks can walk away with a couple learnings from. So on the demo side, couple learnings there. Short term, adding a pricing page which didn't exist before. That was just an overnight 10% jump in demo requests. It's controversial. People don't like putting a pricing page if you don't have public pricing. That's definitely the case at Wiz. There is no public pricing. It's just another version of the demo form. But yeah, that works ridiculously well. And then adding it as an ad extension to your search ads and different places like that, it just makes a ton of sense. And it just allows people who are really looking for just a quote or are at that stage where they just want to talk price and get a rough estimate for budget, they can come in and convert there. Um, on the medium term stuff, the demo flow itself on the website is something that we invested a lot of man hours in testing, different versions of it. Um, and we tested a lot of things. We tested stepping the form. Stepping always outperforms a single form. So by that, by stepping, I mean breaking it down into multiple different steps. In fact, we noticed that there is no drop-off point. You just by breaking it into more and more steps, the conversion keeps going up the more steps you break it into. We decided to stop at 3, but it would have been true had we continued down that path. It just creates a bit of a weird experience, so that's why we decided to stop there. Um, and then there's even subtle things like placing the cursor already in the first field. It doesn't seem like much, but that was a conversion boost. Putting a visual selector that shows like which field is actually being selected. So like for us, it's like a blue outline on the field that confirms that that is where the input is happening. Again, like just subtle changes like that had an immediate lift. And so once you start going down that rabbit hole, you just see just how much room there is to grow. Again, like with the cursor stuff, there was like changing the color to green once the input was completed, and that was like a complete data set. So for like if it's a phone number, it turns green after 9 digits. If it's an email, it turns green after you complete like a normal domain extension at the end, these types of things. Um, and yeah, we even broke down the form. We actually, in some cases, removed the form entirely. So if you are a known visitor, you can one-click convert based on the email and information you had submitted previously. So all of these things kind of stack over time. Um, the final one I wanted to share was just SEO stuff. We created in excess of 500 pages for SEO purposes. The reality is there's only 20 or so of them that actually convert every month. So like I think the learning there is like you can invest heavily in this area. Realistically, though, you're only going to have 20 or so keywords that you actually can predictably see demos come in from. So those are the pages you want to invest more in, and the rest is obviously going to be needed to help those pages rank. But in terms of like the level of effort you want to put behind them, you should probably break those out separately and not have the same level of intensity with it. The sales priority stuff is interesting because like the persona and account targeting was off when I came in, pretty wildly off. The persona targeting was too generous. We were targeting people across the security org, and that was just too broad. We needed to tighten it up. On the account side, it's like I mentioned, for us, it's a function of cloud usage. So really understanding what does the technical setup look like, what is the environment that we're selling into. That was the key that allowed us to then unlock additional investment. And we did that through sales signal. So like what are the sellers actually working on? So for that, we use fields in Salesforce, which is the typical way, top account, tiering, etc. But also plugging into Sales Navigator and extracting which are the contacts that they are actually working, which are the accounts that they're actually working, doing the same with outreach, all of these platforms, and collecting that signal directly there so that we could align the investment with exactly what was happening on the sales side. The Signal one is more like this custom build of like getting data from different sources to understand what does the technical setup look like. And I'll give you a couple ones to take away. But you've got sources like Built With that allow you to see, what technologies are being used on a website. That can be an indicator in some cases of what the technical environment that you're selling into looks like for the customer. You've got tools like Tackle, which looks at marketplace data for AWS or GCP. I think they connect with other marketplaces as well, but basically showing you which accounts have recently transacted via the marketplace, which again for us is a signal that they are actually active in AWS, GCP, or Microsoft Azure. Sumble is another really good one for job posting data. We did this internally at first, and then the developer that we worked with went on to create this company and productize this feature, but basically scraping, sorry, all of the job posting data to understand which technologies are mentioned in engineering job posting. So for us, things like Kubernetes, things like Lambda, things like S3 are all signals of accounts that are in cloud. Yeah, another one that I recently came across is also interesting for technical products is Rio.dev. They look at GitHub repos that are saved and try to match to certain accounts to understand what does the environment look like. So it's all these like collection of small signals that when you put them together, paint this whole picture of which accounts are actually really good fit for our ICP, and that allows us to expand the investment into the accounts that actually do have the right setup. I know that was super long, so I'll pause here and see. Oh yeah, maybe the last thing, François, you asked me things that didn't work. The things that
Yeah.
didn't work and that if I had to do it over again, I would get rid of is everything that's like really volume-based tactics. All of this is really focused on high quality signal. The volume-based stuff, the top of the list, content syndication, never again in my life am I investing $1 in that. We cut it from the attribution model about 6 months in after I joined, but even 6 months of spend in that was ridiculous. So I think, my takeaway there is never spending there again. But even volume-based tactics that are like too low intent, like badge scans at a conference booth, or content downloads that actually are coming from low level folks in the org. Like these types of things look good in an attribution dashboard. They actually don't really meaningfully drive growth. So I would again like encourage folks to look at how do you create incrementality in your demo number or create new offers. Like we created a product tour. We have a sandbox environment as well that we're gonna release soon. So these are the types of things I think that buyers who are really interested in learning more about your product do versus people who are just shopping around or actually not the right people to be selling to.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for this. I wanted to see if there's any other questions. Otherwise, I got one.
Cool.
Anything you want to ask, Jonathan?
I had a question, Jonathan. Really
Yeah.
good presentation. I'm actually in an adjacent space, so I work at SiteCode, so very familiar with Wiz as well. What do you think of industry analysts or even like micro influencers in the space? Because I know Wiz, for example, deals with that. So I don't know if you have
Yeah.
experiences there.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually a couple of them and the micro influencer side that we have paid partnerships with. The analysts for sure is big in cyber, so that's a huge one for sure. Huge proof point for the enterprise to be able to show, how favorably you are presented and just how your vision aligns with how analysts are describing the space and the evolution over the next couple of years. So that's a huge one. That actually sat more on the PMM side. So maybe Nico has some more insight there on how that process worked. On the micro influencer side, the only thing I'd give you there is that we tried a pretty broad range, and we actually only saw success with two or three. And so I think it's just about finding that two or three where you have that really good alignment between what you sell, what their audience is comprised of from a job title and from an account perspective, and then go heavily into partnership with those. So yeah, my thought was like the way that we scale this is just finding new influencers and bringing them into the fold. And actually that's not it. The way that you scale it is once you've found the two or three that are really good for you, how do you deepen the partnership and how do you do more stuff with them?
That makes sense. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, for sure.
One question about paid ads and performance in general. You haven't talked about that much. Was it how much of a play was it for you guys and contributor?
Yeah. Sorry. A lot of like the tactics that I described here are from the ad side. So for us, it was Budget-wise, it was about 20 million in budget per year. And in terms of pipeline, it was about half of the digital marketing pipeline was coming from paid ads, and half of marketing was coming from digital. So it was about a quarter of the mix
Okay.
coming from paid ads. Um, I think they're like paid search really good for demos, but very low ceiling in terms of spend. So that's everything that's Google, Bing, etc. LinkedIn, really great quality, but very premium cost. If you can figure out Facebook, that's an incredible channel once you get it working. And we were able to get it to work with a lot of the data that I mentioned before from a contact level perspective, because you don't have account targeting in Facebook. But if you have very good contact level data, you can actually get really good results because the cost per lead is very cheap. And then actually decent results from Reddit and X as well, because again, for like more technical buyers, but the ceiling is very low. You have to be very targeted. For X, it was everything that was based on followers of specific accounts. And for Reddit, it was specific subreddit level targeting. Then, and again, it doesn't scale very well to my point about micro influencers. It was like there were one or two subreddits where we had a really good fit with the audience, and the goal was to saturate the investment there. But as soon as you move into another subreddit, the quality just drops precipitously. So yeah, I think it's a good part of the mix, but it doesn't scale necessarily super well.
Okay. Thank you so much. Maybe one last question. You said you were able to refine the personas because they were too broad initially, and maybe that's a
Yeah.
question to both you and Nico. Where did you find out? How did you do it?
Yeah, I think it was mostly feedback from the sales side that for them, a good conversation, at least initially, needs to start with the VP or VP of security or CISO. Um, that doesn't mean that we necessarily neglected the other roles. Like we actually had a separate team that was doing all of our viral marketing and that was very focused on the kind of IC level folks in security with capture the flag challenges and even our organic reach, like the LinkedIn page, our SEO pages. It was a lot of those users who were coming in that way. Um, I think it's just for the paid dollars, like that's where it doesn't actually make sense to be investing for this like top-down approach. So I think you want to have both muscles, but for the paid side, you want to be very selective and use the paid dollars to go after the harder to reach audiences. Because again, like waiting for a CISO to come and listen to your podcast or complete like a an hour-long video on the website, very unlikely to happen. That's where paid is really unique at getting in front of those people.
Okay. Thank you. That's super clear, super helpful. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us and
My
walking us through
pleasure.
that. Obviously, there's something that many companies don't have the luxury to deal with is the amount of traffic they were getting because they had such strong PMS and brand. Uh, and but on top of that, you still built an engine that was getting more people. So thanks. I wanted to get a show of hands for people if you want to raise your hand if you want to continue the conversation mostly around AI adoption.